Shri Krishna Parabrahmane Namaha. Today I want to discuss you that the topic is Hindu devotional literature in Tamil language. After the prayer. Gadine khadgine tubhyam shankine chakrine namaha Shuline charmine nityam Paradaya namo namaha. Manikavasagar and the three great writers of Devaram hymns who represent ancient Tamil literature. As representing medieval Tamil written probably about the same period as some of the masterpieces of English literature, Pattanattu Pillai and Thayumanavar. As representing Tamil poetry of modern times, in fact of the last generations, Ramalinga Swami. As Devaram proper consists of 7 collections of songs composed by the three great writers Sambandar, Appar and Sundarar. But very frequently there is a bound up with them a copy of the Tiruvasagam of Manikavachakar. These 8 collections are regarded as matching the Sanskrit Vedas and are in fact called the Tamil Vedas. It is these songs which are daily sung before the idol in respectable Saivite temples throughout the Tamil districts, and a special class of Vellala priests called Othuvar is maintained for their recitation. The mere learning of them by rote is held to be a virtue, and Tamil parents compel their sons to memorize them in much the same ways as Christian children are made to learn psalms. We must first refer to Manikavachakar, who is almost certainly the most ancient of the great Tamil poets. As to his date, there is much controversy, but the members of the Tamil Antiquarian Society, a body which is doing very useful research work into the past history of Tamil literature, seem to be fairly agreed in fixing him somewhere about the 4th century AD. Since the publication of Dr. Pope's magnificent edition of the Tiruvasagam, Manikavasagar has become the best known of the Tamil poets in European circles. Moreover, various papers on different aspects of his life and work have been published in the Christian College magazine from time to time. So, therefore, omit any account of Manikavasagar, merely saying in passing that he occupies the foremost place in the reverence and love of the Tamil people, and turn at once to the three great composers whose songs form the Devaram proper or Adangal Murai. Tirujnana Sambandar. Let us know about him. According to a careful investigation by the late Professor Sundaram Pillai, he cannot have lived later than the opening years of the 7th century AD. His name indicates that he was reputed to have some special connection with deity, and is explained by the story told about his early years. His story is that of an infant prodigy, and summarized runs as follows. born of good Brahmin parents, one morning at raw age of 3 accompanied his father to the temple tank. His father was absorbed with his own ablutions, and the youthful prodigy left on the bank evidently felt lonely and wept aloud, whereupon Shiva's consort Uma appeared before him and gave him a cupful of her own milk. The body drank the holy draught and forthwith became Tirujnana Sambandhar, or the one related to the Godhead through wisdom. When his father came and asked him for an explanation for the cup in his hand, he pointed upwards to the divine figure vanishing in the sky, visible to his eyes alone, and uttered a stanza, the first in Devaram. He spent his years until he reached the age of 16. He must have used his time well, for he is said to have composed 10,000 hymns and 1900 lines of his poetry are extant today. At the age of 16, he married the daughter of a pious Brahmin called Nambandar. At the end of the wedding, a miraculous fire appeared in answer to the prayers of the bridegroom, who apparently did not wish for earthly married bliss, and all present, including the married couple, departed this life for heaven. We find that the 10th stanza of all his poems is devoted to a condemnation of those systems. They will probably have the key to the real significance of the Devaram hymn writers in the religious history of South India. They came at a time when Buddhism had deteriorated. They preached Hinduism with fire and fervor, and it is to them more than to any of others that the downfall of Buddhism is due. So thoroughly successful were they that today we regard relics of Buddhism in South India as interesting curiosities. Take any well-known song or popular hymn in English and endeavor to reproduce its meaning in a decent and careful English paraphrase, and you will have but a faint idea of the difficulty in the way of presenting the Devaram hymns in English. But it could doubtless be done by a literary genius, and someday it will be attempted. Meanwhile, in order to give some idea of the subject matter of the songs, in order to understand them at all, we have to bear in mind the description of Shivan in manifestation, which the Puranic stories have left with us. With the crescent moon, the snake, and the descending river Ganges in his locks, his throat black with the poison, which to save mankind he drank from the churned sea of milk, Kshira Sagara Mathana. His body is smeared with ashes from the burning ground and clad in a tiger skin. The origin of these curious accessories of deity would be worth investigating. Dr. Pope thinks that we have in them a relic of the pre-Aryan deity, had god, half demon, coming forth from the burning ground where he holds his midnight orgies, dancing in the midst of his rabble rout. They recur constantly throughout the Tamil poems, and striking comparison to phrases worthily describing God's infinity and His grace. Now, Tirunavukkarasar or Appar Swami. This poet was an older contemporary of Sambandhar, means Tirujnana Sambandhar, who addressed him on meeting him as Appar or Father, and the name remained with him. The other names by which he is known are titles indicative of literary merits. It is interesting to note that he was a Vellala, not a Brahmin. Also, that he was converted to Jainism and afterwards reconverted to Hinduism by the power of his sister Tilagavati Yar, an unmarried female sannyasin. He is said to have been subjected to a series of tortures by the Jain king of his country, but he miraculously escaped from them all, converted the king to Saivism, and then went on pilgrimage to shrine after shrine, singing divine praises in each place. Some of the miraculous deeds ascribed to him are of a very interesting kind, but would take too long to narrate here. He died at the ripe old age of 81. Of the 49,000 hymns said to have been composed by him, only 315 are extant, and these form the second of the three collections in Devaram or Adangal Murai. Third, Sundaramurti Nayanar. Appar Swami is often called the servant of God, Sambandha the child of God, but Sundaramurti Nayanar is called the companion of God. Servant, child, companion. But that term does not carry with it a reverential connotation such as belongs to the title Friend of God given to Abraham in the Old Testament. Let us see the story of Sundarar. Born of good Brahmin parentage, he was brought up in a prince's palace, and when he grew up, his father arranged a suitable marriage for him. Decked as a bridegroom, the young man took his seat in the marriage pandal, but there appeared an aged Brahmin who forbade the marriage, claiming that Sundarar was his slave, according to an ancient contract. This ancient Brahmin was simply Shiva in disguise. The young man saw the vision. The marriage came to an ultimately end, and from that day, Sundarar became a religious devotee. The strange thing is that later on, this Brahmin religious devotee married in succession Parvati, born and brought up in a dancing girl's house, and Sankili, born and bred as a Vellala girl. In the complicated and vexatious conjugal difficulties which ensued, Sivan played the obliging friend in a manner which hardly commends itself to our ethics. But at the age of 18, Sundarar departed this life for Kailasa on a white elephant. His hymns are full of music, simple and of far higher tone than this story would account for. The other great poet of this middle period, whose words are constantly on the lips of Tamil people, is Thayumanavar. He is no Saivite but a Vedantist and is regarded by some Tamilians as teaching philosophy by means of his poems. But it is a religious interest in them which is decidedly predominant. He was born at Veteranium in the Tanjore district about 180 years ago as the son of chief manager of the king of Trichinopolis estates. In his youth, he is said to have sat at the feet of a guru named Silence, and his poetry is full of references to this guru. On the death of his father, Thayumanavar was called upon to take his place in the king's household, which he did out of a sense at duty until the king's death some years later. After the king's death, it became clear that the young widowed queen was enamored of Thayumanavar, whereupon he quietly left the city and withdrew to Ramnath, to his elder brother's home. Pressed by his brother to marry and lead a domestic life, he consented and married a girl there. But his wife died before long, and Thayumanavar renounced his household and led a wandering mendicant life. He seems to have conceived of God as a burning the verse, beginning with burning mass of light and love, whose grace is the real cause of all that transpires in this universe. His poems are wonderfully attractive in the original, especially those in the form of kannis, polished couplets, each complete in itself, concisely and powerfully expressing some particular truth or sentiment. Manikavachakar is the last of the Samaya Kuravar. The milk of Gnosis was given to the divine child by Mother Uma. The evidence for the theophany is impliant in the hymn. Again, the verse beginning with the words Padayar Porkinath bears eloquent testimony to this divine event. Tilagavatiyar was not a female sannyasi, she was a tapaswini of unexampled greatness. The apparently antinomian element that characterizes the Hindu saints is beyond the ken of an ordinary European's comprehension. Many Christians fail to see that the line of Adam could not have been perpetuated save by incestuous relationship. However, no true Hindu condemns this. Ramalinga Swamigal. He lived in Tamil Nadu in the 19th century AD and composed Tiruvarutpa, which consists of 6,000 devotional hymns. He was born on 5/10/1823 at Marutur near Chidambaram. He lived in Madras for more than 30 years and composed a number of poems. He has established Satya Dharma Salai, Satya Jnana Sabhai, and Samarasa Sanmarga Sangham in Vadulur. His philosophical reflections, which are full of egalitarian sentiment and profound humanitarian spirit, are considered to be unique contribution to the world of religion and philosophy. Now coming to Kambar. The Tamil poets are endowed with genial spirit and modest character, but they became crusaders of their cause if anything happens to stain their spotless virtue and prestige. In such cases, they are even prepared to fight with much care, love, and respect without offending their tender feelings. An event which stands as a typical example of poet patron relationship of the ancient Tamil Nadu is depicted here. The Chola king failed to recognize and give due respect to Kamban, the greatest epic poet of Tamil Nadu. The offended poet decided to teach him a lesson. He took a vow that he would sit before the court of the Chola king, duly served and attended by great king, equal in status to the Chola monarch, as his errand man. The Chera king, who was captivated by the poetic talent of Kamban, followed him as an errand man and prepared a betel leaf to Kamban while he was seated in the Chola palace. The Chola king promptly recognized the greatness of Kamban. Now, Subramanya Bharati, 1882 to 1921. Bharati started his poetic career as a court poet of the Jamindar of Yettayapuram. He completely freed himself from the court life when he was attracted by the currents of Renaissance spirit as well as the upsurge of the waves of the Indian freedom struggle. When he found that he was not able to give vent to his patriotic feelings freely in Sudesha Mitran, a Tamil journal in which Bharati worked as a sub-editor. He relinquished his job and started a new journal entitled India. He lived the life of a political exile in Pondicherry. He successfully experimented in modern Tamil literature and showed a new way to his successors. He used poetry as an invincible weapon to fight against oppressions of all kinds. His poems played a predominant role in the freedom struggle, kindling the patriotic feelings of Tamils. Most of his poems are highly prophetic, devotional poems by Tirumular. One of the most celebrated devotional poetic compositions includes the Tirumantram. It was composed by Tirumular and consists of 3000 verses. The poet is rich with concealed allegorical meaning, but is also renowned for their conciseness and simplicity. Tirumular implements allegorical language to describe that an individual can attain enlightenment by disciplining the five senses. The literary work is pregnant with philosophical ideas, mystical and yogic practices. Now, devotional poems by Karaikal Ammayar. Karaikal Ammayar has composed three memorable works, namely Irattai Manimalai, Adbhuta Tiruvandadi, and Mutta Turupatti Kangal. These songs are considered as the earliest extant Shaivite devotional poems. The poems of Karaikal Ammayar are renowned for their expressions of the writer's devotion to God and philosophical content. Some of his works are particularly devoted to Lord Shiva. Now, devotional poems by Alvars and Nayanmars. The first three Alvars had also developed celebrated devotional poems in Tamil literature. Bhoothath Alvar describes his form of prayer as a blissful blend of philosophy and devotion in one of his exceptional devotional hymns. In one of his poems, he states about the inner light Tirunavakkarasar, Nana Champantar, and Kuntarar. The three Nayanmars composed 8,000 hymns, which are now known as Thevaram. Thevaram is the body of Tamil devotional songs. Each of the devotional songs in Thevaram is sung along with the music, and every song is vocalized in a specific pan or meter from the past to the present. Thevaram is not only a corpus of devotional poems in Tamil literature, but also a treasury of 1,300 years of musical tradition. Devotional poems in Tamil literature were prevalent between 1600 AD and 900 AD, after the periods of Sangam literature and ethical Tamil literature. Devotional Tamil poems have mainly evolved from the Bhakti movement that originated in ancient Tamil country, that was initiated by the Alvars and the Nayanmars of the Vaishnava and Saiva sects. Musical compositions of Tirumular and Karaikal Ammayar of Shaiva saints, and composition of Poigai Alvar, Poigai Alvar, Alvar, and the Bhoothath Alvar of the Vaishnavas marked the beginning of the era of devotional poems in Tamil literature. Origin of Bhakti movement. The Bhakti movement was germinated from the seeds of Bhakti cult, which was sown by some dignified characters during the 6th century in Tamil Nadu. It appealed to both the kings and general people. As Alvars and Nayanmars travelled to various temples, singing devotional hymns, the importance of temples grew manifold, and the modest structures increased in stature and size. The Bhakti movement eventually spread throughout the country and gave to devotional literature in India. When the Pandyan king Arimardhanam punished Manikkavasagar for spending the government money for religious purpose, Lord Shiva performed a miracle before the king to make known the greatness of the famous Saivite saint. The outrageous king's men went to Vanti to punish her, but she was taken to heaven on divine chariot by Shiva Ganas. When the king's men went to the river bank, they found that it was completely repaired. श्रीयकांताय कल्याण निधे निधेद्राम श्री वेंकटनिवासाय श्रीनिवासाय मंगलम मंगलाशासनपरैर्मदाचार्य पुरोगमैः सर्वैश्च पूर्वैराचार्ये सत्कृतायास्तु मंगलम्.